All right, so Windsor area rents fall to the lowest levels in 15 months, but still high for many. Yeah, so we've seen an incredible run up over the last, since 2019, for the prices of homes and as well as rent prices. A number of the factors going into this has been influx of, migration, increase, and that's internal and external migration. So people moving into the Windsor Essex area due to remote work that allows them to be a bit more flexible in their location, as well as projects that have come up in Windsor, Essex, such as the bridge, the hospital construction, the battery plant. Again, not all of these are fully active, but one of the things is people will be moving in to the area for that. So obviously that puts a constraint on the supply for the rental units. But then also what we're seeing is not necessarily a commensurate creation of new housing units, right? So we do have more construction on the on close to the outer edges of Windsor. Not so much in the center. No real new developments taking place. There are some refurbishing of older units, and more or less flips of homes taking place. That's what took place over the last few years. So we're seeing an increase in the value of the homes because they're being upgraded um, in that sense. So we have seen a consistent increase in prices and then a consistent increase in rents, but not necessarily a consistent increase in wages within that area. So that's one of the issues. So obviously, for folks that have their rental agreements coming up for renewal. Or looking to move to a new location, they might be a little out of luck. They might be kind of stuck with where they are because the prices kind of went haywire over the last few years. But we're starting to see a little bit of a come down. So in the Windsor area, uh, according to Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation's fall rent study, reported the vacancy rate rose to 3.3%, and that's ultimately what you want to necessarily what you want to see. But that's if you're looking for home prices or you're looking for rental prices to come down, you want to see an increase in vacancy rate. So as you start to see softening in the job market, people might be pulled out of that region to go to areas where there's more economic activity. So that might again lead to a decrease in or an increase in the vacancy rate. And then also what you might that's a funny ad, but what you might expect to see is a decrease in the amount of students, right? So we're already seeing a reduction in the amount of foreign students coming to the region. So if there's less students, less student housing, less of them are going to be spending on outside of the campus, outside of specific purpose-built student housing. So we're going to see an increase in vacancy over the next few months. So probably we're going to start to see a fairly dramatic decrease in the rental rates over the next few months. Um, and that being said, I mean we're already starting to see that in other regions that tend to have stronger rental rates. So we're seeing a significant declines in Toronto over the last year and a bit. And so we're starting things start to move in that direction. So what does this mean long term? Who knows? I'm not trying to make any predictions. I'm just trying to provide an update as to what's actually going on. So we're going to start to see more folks come in, like I said, with regards to the some of the projects that we have or they have coming up. So the Gordie Howe International Bridge, which I believe is going to be finished opened next fall. So I think that employed a few hundred folks with regards to that. But the thing is, it's not just about the direct employment; it's also the indirect employment, the people that are helping out with supporting the increased amount of people. They create additional economic activity. People, 2,500 people. They're renting from somewhere. They're buying food from places. They're spending money. So when they leave, or if they leave, then it's going to create a bit of a vacuum, right? And it's going to create a new adjustment on prices. Um, the Next Star Energy Battery Factory, I mean, that's going to bring in about 2,500 people. Highway expansion, I believe the estimate was around the same. Um, and that's really it. So we take a look here from one of the realtors, local realtors, from the last year or two. I've seen an influx of workers coming for short to longer term rentals because of work opportunities. They'll rent a 3 bedroom condo, and there will be a few people sharing the condo. That's interesting. That wouldn't be what I would think, but anyways, I think this is something particular to the Windsor market, maybe. So I mean, yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then I guess all you're going to see is more pressure on certain types of accommodation. I mean, three bedrooms, people split that. I guess it works out to be less expensive to split a 3 bedroom condo than it is to get a 1 bedroom on your own. All right. But yeah, however, it's another story in the apartment rental segment. So according to rentals.ca, the average rent in November for a studio locally is $1,276. A 1 bedroom is $1,548. A 2 bedroom is $1,816, and a 3 bedroom is $1,818. The 1 bedroom unit showed no change year over year, while the other three categories recorded declines of 6 to 10%. That's fairly substantial. I know it's at the end of the day, like you want to see things come down more than $200, but $200 in a year is fairly substantial. I mean, things may accelerate into the new year depending on how, because I mean, unemployment is up. The economy is fairly shaky, which is one of the reasons the interest rates have been coming down the way it has been. I mean, who knows? Maybe we might see increased economic activity from the softened dollar, right? The Canadian dollar is not healthy, so we might see a lot more folks coming in over the border to spend some money on whatever entertainment they might find attractive. Um, Chen, again, the realtor, added that there are also more homes that have become available for rent as sellers wait for what they believe is will be a more seller-friendly market in 2025 due to declining interest rates. I think they might be a little surprised that it's not going to be as friendly as they might think. Again, a lot of the purchases that were occurring were people buying out of town. I think the investment buyers are going to dry up as well because it's not. I mean, it's tougher to buy these types of investment properties during. Uh, well, when there's instability in employment, you don't necessarily want to be owning the rental I mean, maybe it's a good time to buy low, but I mean the prices haven't come down enough to really justify the risk you might be taking, especially during a if we might be going into a recession. There's high unemployment. I mean, who's going to be pay? Because at the end of the day, when you buy a rental property, somebody has to pay the mortgage. It's not going to be you. The idea is that the renter is going to have stable sources of income. Higher unemployment means less likelihood of that being the case, right? So the price has to be able to come down to justify the risk that you're taking. I mean, outside of that, I don't think a lot of people are going to be moving to Windsor. I don't think there's necessarily outside of those few projects is necessarily anything particularly enticing to get a lot of folks coming in to into the region. That's just the case, right? So I mean, I think it might over the long term develop well, but I mean, as of right now, there's not particularly much of anything in terms of real major changes that are going to be occurring in the next in the short term. Um, but yeah, so I think they're relying heavily on students, and we're seeing a reduction in the amount of international students. So, but not like a huge reduction. We're going back to the amount. I think I saw it was in like the 2020 levels when it came to student international students population, right, in these universities. Um, we see here, demand around the university and college has gone down. You're seeing more vacant properties. That means lower rents and more competition. So yeah, I think in the short term, over the next 6 to 12 months, it's not going to be particularly great for a lot of these landlords. I think they're probably a lot of them have bought low enough, anyways, to be able to be comfortable. Um, so it's not necessarily going to affect them. But I mean, if they're trying to sell their home in the next 3 to 6 months, I can't see why they would be getting a better deal um, just because interest rates are going down. Because I think a lot of what people think is that because of the way that it's been discussed is that interest rates are the end all and be all for the demand generation in the economy. I mean, it's heavily the case, but it's not completely the case, right? I mean, people, if you don't have a job, they're not going to buy. And when there's a shaky economic situation, they're less likely to make large spending decisions, purchase decisions, right? Those will be deferred. And as we go into 2025, we are going into a very shaky time because I mean, we have what 5 million, I think, or is it two? I can't remember exactly. I know it's between 2.5 million and 5 million um, uh, work permits that are being renewed. Now, that's obviously being spread out across the entire country, but primarily that's going to be focused within Ontario. Um, Now, I don't know exactly what that means in terms of how many of those renewals are going to remain, but I do recall them saying that we're not expecting to see any growth in the population. So it might even be negative. So if that's the case, negative growth is not necessarily something that's conducive to increased values of our properties. So because we're going to see start to see a softening in demand in certain areas, lack of less people, less jobs, less job stability. It means softening of prices when it comes to rentals and housing. People might be trying to figure out new accommodations for themselves. And again, Windsor hasn't historically been a strong market for employment, so we will see what happens. I think, but like I said, I think long term Windsor does well. There's a lot of, I think it has good bones. It's right. I mean, there has to be some sort of benefit to its location, and all those sorts of things. There has to be a benefit eventually, right? I mean, you got an airport, you got you got all these things. I know maybe there's some sort of political bottlenecks that don't allow for expansion in the way that might be the most conducive for growth. But I think long term, eventually, because all you need is like one good mayor, right? All you need is one good set of politicians, and it can make the difference for generations, right? So hopefully that is the case. It sounds like they're trying to move in very positive directions right now. So we just I guess wait and see. But anyway, that's just my take on the little update there with regards to rentals, because I think this is a place to watch. I think I'm gonna try to do more of a series on this region, and because I think there's a lot of growth to be had. I think it also hasn't been impacted let me know it has. It has absolutely been impacted in the same way that a lot of the other regions have when it comes to the craziness that happened during COVID with regards to house prices. I mean, a lot of people got priced out of the market within Windsor. It really is. There definitely needs to be more homes built, and the old ones need to be refurbished, and there's some social things that need to be taken care of within the downtown to make it a little bit more nice, so that people can come there and want to stay. Uh, so, anyways, that's my 2 cents.